paint, and more paint. Plus, the field for the Great American Race is set. Who's in, who's out. Come on inside the Scrutineering room and let's find out all the answers to this and plenty more. What's good, family? David back with you. Happy Friday as I'm recording this. And boy, I got a super inspection episode for you today. Got a lot of topics, not a lot of time. So let's get right into it. We got sports cars, we got Indycar, we got Formula One, we got NASCAR. So I'm gonna lump sports cars into one big pile today. Let's start with the World Endurance Championship. A couple of paint scheme announcements coming out this week. First off, Proton competition, they will be in the hypercar class in the World Endurance Championship with a 5th Porsche 963, 5 in total in the World Endurance Championship hypercar class. And Proton really brought the heat on their paint scheme. They are mimicking the 1994 Le Mans winning Porsche Dower 962 with sponsor FAT Turbo Express International, which is one of Proton's sponsors on their hypercar this year. So to honor the brand and the 30th anniversary of that magnificent win at Le Mans, the team decided to throw it back and put the car in black, white, and red of FAT. I gotta admit, it is a very stunning look, very beautiful, and there really is a lot of character and a lot of passion when you think of Proton's Porsche relationship, really giving the brand much needed play, much needed homage to this classic look. FAT has been a long time sports car sponsor, so for Proton to continue the relationship with them, but also to be able to honor both the sponsor and the brand in one shot, going back to this big triumph for the team, it definitely speaks volumes. And honestly, it's a very classy look. Why mess with something that's broken? So no, FAT, Proton competition, and Porsche with a fabulous look for the World Endurance Championship. By the way, the 8-race World Championship begins March 2nd in Qatar. Proton and Porsche are not the only throwbacks on the World Endurance Championship grid for this season. McLaren and United Autosports also unveiled their paint schemes for the 2024 season, and they will pay tribute to McLaren's 1995 overall win at Le Mans, with the Japanese entered jet black, McLaren F1 GTR. Their two McLaren 720S GT3s will be primary in black. However, towards the rear of the car, as you see, it will have that classic papaya orange put in there as well. Another great tribute. I like the modern touch-up of the papaya put in, just so you know, hey, this is still the modern day McLaren. And I love how McLaren continues to go back to that original color in a lot of their modern looks. I think it gives not just the tribute, the homage, the honoring of such an amazing moment in the brand's history, but it also shows that you're still keeping it with brand identity. So I can definitely respect McLaren on this one. So a couple of great paint schemes coming out of the World Endurance Championship as we get ready for the new season, and we're just touching the paint, I'm telling you. We got plenty more. Of course, we got F1 launches coming up, but one little bit of where did that come from news, and this comes from the SRO Fanatec World GT Challenge Europe season. Ford was set to have their Mustang GT3 on the European sports car scene, which is ran by the aforementioned Stefan Rattel organization, which is the brand that brought GT3 into the mainframe of sports car racing in the first place. Ford had chosen Italian-based Dynamo Racing to campaign the Mustangs this season, and they had given them a roster of Ford factory drivers to go forth and represent the brand over in Europe. However, that came to a screeching halt on Thursday. The Dynamo team announced, and this is verbatim from their quote, it said, "Due to reasons which we are not going to make public at this time, Dynamo GT has determined and elected to end its relationship with Ford. We do wish the manufacturer all the best. They say they do wish to come back soon and in due course with a very strong program. However, they felt at this particular time it was not right to go forth with the Ford program." So the biggest question right now is, where does Ford go with the GT World Challenge Europe season? Is there another team that will step up and run the cars last minute? The season is about, give or take, 2 months away from its first round. So very late in the game, and very late in the game for Ford to have this rug pulled from underneath them. A team kind of backing out of a factory supported effort. Not the first time, likely won't be the last, but definitely a little surprising, especially considering not a lot was given by neither side as to the reason why this will not happen. So interesting times to see what Ford will do. I know there likely won't be a full season effort. I'm pretty sure we will see the Mustang GT3 in Europe at some point, my personal opinion. I'm pretty sure over time we will see and hear about those news and developments. But for right now, at least for the start of the GT World Challenge season, there will be no blue oval representation to start the season. Before we get to Formula One, let's give you one quick IndyCar nugget that came out this week, and it's actually a pretty big one. Scott Borchetta, the man behind Big Machine Vodka, and was one of the big forces behind the Music City Grand Prix, which IndyCar has been running the last couple of years, announced this week that they have come to terms with Speedway Motorsports, and the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix for the NTT IndyCar Series will move from its downtown street course to Nashville Super Speedway for its September 16th season September 15th season finale. Sorry, got my dates there a little mixed up. But a very interesting development indeed. Fans have been crying for more ovals. Here you go. So now that puts the season at 7 oval races and 6 in the final 8 to finish the season. This includes 2 doubleheaders at both Iowa and Milwaukee, and also the race at Gateway in St. Louis. Now you have Nashville, first time in a decade that the IndyCar Series will determine its champion, or will have the season finale, I should say, on an oval. Hopefully we will have a championship race that will go down to the wire this season. Last year was a little bit of a rarity as Alex Palou ran away and clinched the title a little bit early. But glad to see that IndyCar is still very committed to the Nashville market. There was word Marshall Pruitt wrote in his racer article. He actually did an opinion piece as well on the move from downtown to the Speedway out in Lebanon, which is in the metro area, about 20 to 30 miles away from downtown. I did not realize how close, I should say. I did not realize how close the Music City Grand Prix actually came to falling under. Scott Borchetta, through the news release, actually announced that he is now taking over the running of the race. He's not just the title sponsor, he will be the man in charge. To continue the relationship, and it seems like with Borchetta stepping in, it looks like this is what the race needs to keep it going a lot longer. And hopefully we'll be able, and there was word in the article, they do hope to go back to downtown. If you're not familiar with the city of Nashville, the Tennessee Titans are in the process of remodeling and having a brand new stadium built in downtown. The stadium is set to be ready by 2027. And if you're not familiar with the geographics of Nashville, the Music City Grand Prix that have been run on the streets the last 3 years had the paddock, the start-finish area was over at Nissan Stadium in one of their parking lots. So with the construction starting to pick up en masse, there was an alternate layout announced late last year in 2023 where the race was going to go down through Broadway as part of a revised layout. And as excited as it was, in hindsight, maybe that was just a little bit of more gimmicky and maybe hopeful at best. Nashville, one of its biggest attractions to the city, shutting itself down for a whole weekend probably would have been way too big of an ask. And I think once people realized that and the writing was on the wall, I think there had to be reevaluation of what was to come. Hence, this was the final solution or the best solution to keep the race maintained. And so instead of finding an alternate street route again, and Borchetta in the press release was adamant to say, we are still great partners with the Titans. We hope to continue once the stadium is done going back to downtown. But it appears that going back and reviving Indycar on the Nashville Superspeedway concrete oval was the best solution for all parties involved. And for me, it's a welcome surprise. It's a welcome announcement. And it doesn't change my stance either way. I still plan to buy my ticket. I still plan to make my way to Nashville to enjoy the season finale this September. So if you come across this, I hope to see you guys in Nashville later this season to help celebrate and crown an IndyCar champion. So that was the little bit of big IndyCar news that came out this week. Now let's go to that other open wheel series we know about, Formula One. The second half of launch season, we are finally through all 10 teams. Last week we went through the first 5 through a couple of shows. Today we're going to go through the back 5 that unveiled their cars this week. Starting first and foremost, Monday, Aston Martin unveiled their AM24. Not as much carbon, however, a great amount of British green on the car. Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, back once again for their second season together to pilot the AM24s this season. Fernando 4th in the Drivers' Championship last year. The team finished 5th after such a strong start, but a lackluster second half of the season. Maybe lackluster might be a little bit of a stretch, but the team definitely waned from their explosive start to the season, but they did have a pretty solid end of the season. Lance Stroll getting some solid points, Fernando picking up another podium or two as the season wrapped up. From the looks of it, not too much on the AM24. It's changed from the AM23. I'm pretty sure a lot of that, there's more to it on the inside than out, but it seems Fernando and Lance pretty positive. They did do the launch at Silverstone, and they did manage to go ahead and do their 100 kilometers for filming day while at the track as well. So that kicked off a very busy week of launches. After Aston Martin on Monday, Ferrari, as if they haven't given us enough to talk about this offseason, launched on Tuesday their SF24. Nice highlight of yellow to go with their traditional scarlet red. For Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Of course, Sainz, if you are not familiar, his final season with Ferrari, and the only driver not in a Red Bull to win in 2023, hoping to keep that up in 2024. A great season for Carlos will definitely make him will make him, who is already in high demand in the driver market, will only raise his stock price as he looks to go ahead and secure a deal. Will he end up at Mercedes? Will he go back to Sauber to help spearhead Audi's charge into Formula 1 in 2025? Only time will tell, but the SF24 looks to be a very solid challenger. Minimal side pod changes and very minimal change, and I'm told, as always, more changes within in the mechanical piece on the Ferrari. So definitely a lot more to look out for there. Very nice paint scheme. Just like V-carb, not a lot of carbon to be found. Still a decent little amount, but nowhere compared to some of the others we've seen this week. Wednesday, we got a double dose. First off, McLaren. McLaren actually revealed their paint scheme for the MCL 38 back in January, as a little bit of a, hey, by the way, here you go, just a little appetizer to get you ready for what we were unveiled. So Wednesday, McLaren unveiled the MCL 38 for the world to see. Looks like they went and did a little bit more of a reduction on the side pods to make it a little bit more aerodynamic, but still the hopes are very high in Woking for Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri after a dazzling second half to the season last year. Team looks to improve on fourth place and hopefully a very strong start out of the gate in 24, as opposed to the absolutely horrible start the team endured in 23. Hopefully a stronger start this season, and McLaren could be challenging Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull at the top of the pylon. Also on Wednesday, Lewis Hamilton's final silver arrow, the Mercedes W15, and this was a very nice paint scheme. A great mix of silver and the carbon black. Nice little touches of red for their sponsor Ineos, sponsor/investor for those who are not in the loop. But a very good car, and Mercedes' W15 was probably the most, I won't say anticipated, but probably the most talked about car, given the team's fall from its title domination the last two seasons. But yes, Mercedes going in a whole new direction from where they have been, it is a complete redesign. The base has absolutely changed. You don't see any the side pods, a lot more traditional, and it looks like the car just has a much smoother and better flow compared to what they have had the last 2 seasons with the sideless or podless, whichever you want to use, side podless. I could go on. But to say Mercedes is really banking a lot on this W15 says a lot. It is going to be a very pivotal season for Mercedes. Of course, we know Lewis Hamilton. Of course, as we've mentioned, Lewis Hamilton will not be coming back in 25. So they did go ahead and get that out of the way when they did do the launch. And hey, we know it's Lewis's last season. We're trying to go out and make it one for the books. Mercedes with their first winless season in 23 since 2011. And for Lewis, still looking for his first win in over 40 races. 43, if I remember the number correctly, considering he's gone 2 straight seasons without a win. And I think that number is actually 45. Going all the way back, Saudi Arabia 2021, Lewis's last win. Speaking of winning, the team that has picked up the mantle from Mercedes these last 2 seasons in absolutely dominating form. Last but not least, Adrian Newey's latest creation, the Red Bull RB20. And if you look pretty closely at this RB20, you might pick up a very interesting cue if you look towards the sides, towards the back. And if you're thinking to yourself, does that mimic a little bit of what Mercedes was doing these last 2 seasons? You might be onto something. That was a very big talking point on Thursday when the car launched about how Adrian Newey took that concept of a little bit more of a bulky, round rear to the car and decided to infuse it into the RB20. So a lot of people are going to be wondering, Mercedes didn't make it work. Could Adrian Newey? He has been the one to crack the formula for this ground effect era, and he has done it with a sickening crack, I should note. So to say Adrian sees this and could be picking up on something, I will not be the least bit surprised. And until you dethrone the king, you're going to have to contend with them. And pretty sure Red Bull will be right back where they left off in November, picking up in preseason testing as the team to catch in Bahrain when they head testing next week. So with that being said, that is all the launches, all 10 cars. If you would like, leave a comment. Let us know, what was your favorite paint scheme throughout the launch season? And things are really about to pick up in high gear. Things pick up Wednesday. Testing begins in Bahrain. They test Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. And make note, opening night, the Bahrain Grand Prix, not Sunday. It will be Saturday night, March 2nd. Again, Saturday, March 2nd, the season opening Bahrain Grand Prix. So definitely make sure you mark your calendars for that. It's almost that time, boys and girls. Formula One is almost here. And boy, we cannot be more excited about it. Before I go into NASCAR real quick, there has been another update on the Christian Horner investigation. Multiple stories have told that the one employee that did raise an investigation to Red Bull headquarters in Austria. There is sexual complaints that were filed against Christian. Christian, by the way, was present at the RB20 launch on Thursday. There is even reports that Christian attempted to reach a settlement of over 600,000 pounds, euro talking over 700,000 euros. No word on well, we don't know if the settlement was accepted or not, if anything went public, but apparently another bit of information that came out on the social media rounds was that Horner, and this behavior had been going on for some time, and other high-profile names in Formula One, which, by the way, none of those high-profile names were mentioned or leaked in these reports. But apparently this had been going on for quite a while, a couple of years, as much as told. Again, we still don't know the ramifications of this. However, if one entity has something to say about it, could there be swift action? Possibly, because Mark Rushbrook has spoken out on the matter. And paraphrasing what he's saying, Ford Motor Company acts with integrity and respect, and we expect our partners to do the same. If you're reading the tea leaves there, essentially, the bear is saying, get your house in order, or else. Now, am I saying, or is that Rushbrook's undercover way of saying the Ford Red Bull powertrain deal might bite the dust if Horner stays on? I'm not 100% sure. These were the comments made. Who knows where we will go from here? I think that's kind of the best way to take the approach. Only time will tell. Let's see how things play out. So that's Formula One in a nutshell for this week. Got you up to speed there. All right, now here in America, we got this little thing called Speed Weeks going on. NASCAR is kicking back up, and the field is set for the Daytona 500. Wednesday, we had pole qualifying for the Great American Race. If you are not familiar with how the Daytona 500 field is set, it's been like this since day one of the Great American Race. They do traditional time trials, single car qualifying. Only the top two drivers have their positions determined through pole qualifying. In addition to them, the fastest two drivers that are outside of the charter system, aka open entries, will lock their way into the 500 based on their time trial speed and time. The rest of the field is set through the two 150-mile dual races. And as for the open cars, the highest finishing open car is locked into the race. If that car was also one of the two that was locked in on qualifying speed, the next fastest car not locked in then takes that position. If you did get a little confused by that, I do apologize, but that's just how it works. Sorry, won't go into it here. So, Wednesday night, Busch pole qualifying, Joey Logano gives Roger Penske his first pole for the Daytona 500. The 2015 champion will start alongside 2021 Daytona 500 champion Michael McDowell, the first all-Ford front row for the Daytona 500 in 12 years. And that just fits front row and Team Penske. If you did not know, earlier this week, Front Row Motorsports got a very big boost. They formally announced their alliance with Team Penske, and they were brought up to Tier 1 manufacturer support with Ford. If Front Row is not in the conversation, I bet you they will be now. So definitely a lot of positivity coming the way of Front Row Motorsports. There was one downside. Their third car, Kaz Grala, did not set a time. So on Wednesday, his gear shift broke. So unfortunately, he had to race his way into the 500. While Wednesday night was Ford showing their muscle, McDowell going early in the second round, which was split between Ford and Chevy. 6 Fords, 4 Chevys, if my memory serves me right. McDowell went early in the second round shootout. The 10 fastest from the first single lap runs then went to make their run for the pole. McDowell held the pole right up until Logano, who was fastest from the first round. He basically re-stamped his position at the top to take the pole for the 500. Would have been nice to see front row on the pole. Michael McDowell, especially after winning the 500, would have been nice to see him on the pole. However, Joey Logano had other plans. Still, Roger Penske riding a wave of momentum. In addition to his first 500 pole, he won his first Rolex in over 50 years. And of course, Ryan Blaney's title back in November. You gotta admit, it's great times being Roger Penske right now. But while Wednesday belonged to Ford, Thursday was all Toyota in the Blue Greens Vacations duels at Daytona. Race 1 was Tyler Reddick for 2311, and if I'm not mistaken, this was Tyler's first dual win for not just him, but for 2311 as well. And in race 2, Denny Hamlin lost the lead on the final lap. Christopher Bell, with help from Harrison Burton and Austin Cindric, went on to take the victory in race 2. In addition to that, the other big headline, who was going to race their way into the Daytona 500? On Wednesday night, Anthony Alfredo and David Reagan locked themselves in on speed. One of the 4 drivers fighting for the last 2 spots, 7-time champ himself, Jimmy Johnson, in his 3rd car for Legacy Motor Club. And when I tell you it was close, it was very close. If you have not seen highlights of the duels, go to YouTube, take a look at it for yourself. But literally, it took coming out of turn 4 on the final lap for Jimmy Johnson, with help from Martin Truex Jr., to nip JJ Yeley at the line to get himself into the 500. And unfortunately, that close for JJ Yeley to have the story of Speed Weeks, taking an 11th hour entry and putting them into the Great American Race. Greg Biffle did it 2 years ago, but this time just not enough. Johnson would go on to make the duels the open qualifier through race 1. In race 2, once again, it came down to the final lap, but all 3 of the open cars in that second race right together. But with help from David Reagan, Kaz Grala just beat out BJ McLeod to get the 40th and final spot in the field for the 66th Great American Race. So when you hear J.J. Yaley and B.J. McLeod going home, it was by no means for a lack of effort. After 2 amazing dual races, you hate to see it, especially how close both teams had came. And both would have been incredible stories. Unfortunately, in a world like this, there's more cars than spots in the field. 2 had to go home, and unfortunately for JJ Yaley and New York Racing, BJ McLeod and Live Fast, the journey ended for them Thursday night in the Blue Greens Vacation Duels at Daytona. So with that being said, the field of 40 is set for the 66 Daytona 500. I won't go through the full field, but I'll give you 3 levels of this. Favorites, dark horses, and underdogs. In my personal opinion, these are the guys who I think could shine, could surprise, and could come straight out of left field. I'll start with the underdogs on this one. Let's start with Colic Racing, AJ Allmendinger, Daniel Hemrick. I'm just not expecting a lot out of them in this race. I hope they prove me wrong, but they just haven't had much. We know Chevy is here with the tried, tested and true Camaro, no upgrades for season 3 of that car. And it's been a little bit of a piece together off season for Colic. But Daniel Hemrick has shown that he is a pretty good racer. Will the equipment match it? We will see. But he's taking his shot in the number 31. AJ's in the number 16. But again, they will have a good little bit to do to assure themselves winning the 500 outright. Second on the underdog list, and I know you guys are going to light me up for this if you come across it, I got Ricky Stenhouse Jr. as an underdog again. Yes, the defending champion is back as an underdog, and here's the simple reason why. JTG Daugherty Racing, as great of a story that was last season, I, in my heart of hearts, just can't see that happening twice. I'm not going to say they won't get up there in the mix and contest for the win. I'm just saying I don't see it happening twice. And again, Ricky, Mike Kelly, go ahead and prove me wrong and have the most unprecedented back-to-back 500 triumph we'll ever see in our lifetimes. But I have to put Ricky Stenhouse Jr. as an underdog. More for, again, same reason as Colic. They're not a top-tier Chevy team. And I just don't know if the Chevy performance is there. Chevy's been quiet through the week so far. They didn't make noise in qualifying. They were just there, meh. They had an okay duel. They had decent speed in qualifying, but I'm not quite there with Chevy, and they're gonna have to prove that one to me. I'd still have some Chevys as favorites, but Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is not one of them. While I have Michael McDowell as a pretty good favorite, spoiler, his teammates Todd Gillen and Kaz Gralla, I'm going to put in the underdog column. For Kaz, if I remember correctly, it's his second Daytona 500. Todd's in his third, his second straight for front row. And and while Michael is showing what this front row team can do, Todd, I think, can get there. I just don't see it happening in this 500. And for Kaz Gralla, he's got a lot to live up to because Riley Herbst showed what that third front row car could do at Talladega last October. He was right there in the thick of it to the end. And I don't know what that race did, but Riley Herbst gained a lot of confidence from that Talladega weekend, and I think it could spawn here. So that's why I have Todd Gillen and Kaz Grala in my underdog list. And last but not least, I love them, but even as a tier 2 Chevy team, I gotta put Spire Motorsports there. They have a very talented lineup with Zane Smith, Carson Hocevar, and of course, spearheading the effort, Corey LaJoie. And oh, by the way, I can't wait for his Chili's commercial Sunday during the 500. It's going to be panache. I've seen previews of it on social media today. It's going to be something awesome. But that says something that I can say more about his commercial than I can say about the car on track. I do want Corey to prove me wrong. Corey has been a great super speedway racer. The question I have is, has Spire bitten off more than they can chew with this massive off season? Corey has been very vocal. They're a 2-car team, basically running one car, and the second car is just there for shots and goggles. Not his words. I'm putting some words in his mouth. Forgive me. But if the conditions go right, I think Spire can surprise people. Well, I think top 10s, top 5s, I think they're definitely askable. But for the win, I have to put all 3 of the Spire Camaros in the underdog table. Now, level 2, my dark horse picks for the 500. And yes, my pick for the 500 is a dark horse. If you went on Twitter, you know this. I had picked Bubba Wallace to win the Daytona 500. He is still considered a dark horse by many. However, his performance in Duel 2 should boost him more to favorite. However, the ending is why I will put him at a dark horse level. Bubba, of course, twice a bridesmaid, runner-up in the 500, both in 2018 and then just recently 2022. But Bubba has always been a good super speedway racer. Of course, his first win came at Talladega. And honestly, he's been knocking on the door time after time for a Daytona win. I thought it would come last night in the duel. It didn't quite happen, especially after that big wreck, which I didn't touch upon, but I will a little bit in my favorites piece. But definitely got to like 2311. Also, race 1 winner Tyler Reddick I'm going to put as a dark horse because Tyler hasn't always been the best when it comes to super speedway racing in the past. But if Thursday was any indication, he's gained a lot of confidence, and Bubba has been a very big piece of that. So I'm going to put them as dark horse for right now, but don't be surprised if 2311's Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace are right there in the top 5, top 10 late in the going on Sunday. Another team that I'm hoping to be there, Legacy Motor Club, and they kind of backed my theory Thursday night. Especially Eric Jones in duel number 1, getting that top 5 finish. I think Eric's going to be the biggest player in this. However, I'm not counting out John Hunter Nemechek and Jimmy Johnson. You can't count Jimmy Johnson out. And if you've heard on SiriusXM today, earlier on, of course it's Friday as I'm recording this, Jimmy gained a lot of humility last night, having to go through and seeing how close he came to being in a suite on Sunday, pampering sponsors instead of being out on the track himself. But now that he is in, and with how racy those new Toyota Camrys look, you cannot count those 3 Toyota's Legacy Motor Club out. Even though this is their first 500, and this is really more of the reason I'm putting them in the dark horse than the underdog. Toyota looked really racy, and if something pops off at the front, don't be surprised if one of those 3 Legacy Motor Club Camrys comes out of the smoke in the lead with the checker flag in sight. Some other dark horses I have, 2 former winners, Austin Dillon, Austin Cindric. Yes, I'm putting the Austins in here. Austin Cindric in particular had a really good dual race. He'll start 6th on Sunday, finishing 2nd Thursday night. But Cindric is a dark horse because his 2023, the sophomore slump was real, and it was absolutely brutal. he had a couple of top 10s, but I gotta see more with him and Brian Wilson. It looked like the chemistry from the Xfinity days was starting to come back. But now, can they keep what they tried to build towards the end of 23? Can they bring that into 24? And can Cindric get back to his winning ways here at Daytona, but beyond this race? That's going to be the big question for me going in. And he'll start, and he had a good run last night, was second actually going into turn 3. How about Harrison Burton as a dark horse? Everyone's been asking, when is Harrison going to shine? When will the Wood brothers get that 100th win? Is Harrison going to be the guy to get them there? Verdict's still out, but after a good little piece Thursday night, I can't say he's out of the conversation at all. He looked racy in 22 before he got flipped at the end of segment 1. 23 was a little bit of an enigma, wasn't much of a factor in that one, but if Thursday night's an indication, he'll be starting in the top 15, and he looks to stay there for the duration of the race. And if he is there in the closing stages, keep an eye on that red, white, and gold numbered 21. Now let's get into my favorites, and let's talk about that wreck in duel number 2. Lap 45, big wreck with Ryan Blaney, Kyle Busch. Both those cars totaled last night. Ryan Blaney, the champ, visibly frustrated in post-wreck interviews. And Blaney's making the effort. Hey, this is the third straight time I've came here. I've gotten right hooked. We got to do better, making better decisions. Hopefully, there's a different change in tune, and who knows, that backup car may be good enough to win the 500, but we still will have to, but only time will tell. As I'm recording this, they are practicing for the 500. Will they get another practice on Saturday? Time will tell. Weather is a factor in Daytona Beach, so we will see. But let's talk about the men who are likely looking to be favorites for Sunday's race. We will start with the aforementioned Ryan Blaney and teammate Joey Logano. Say what you want, but these guys are still forces to be reckoned with. Joey, of course, 2015 winner, one of only 7 drivers in this field to have won the 500 before. Ryan Blaney, he's come so close so many times. Well, not so many times, but he's come close especially often. Blaney, of course, a winner at Daytona. He won the summer race in 21. So Blaney knows how to win at Daytona. He's basically saying to the racing gods, this recent Daytona bad luck has got to shake off. And if it does, expect that number 12 to be right there towards the front come crunch time Sunday night. Same for Joey Logano. Joey, though, has a little bit of a hill to climb. Not since Dale Jarrett in 2000 has the pole sitter for the Great American Race gone on to win it. Joey looks to buck that trend. Looks to buck that trend. Again, he broke Hendrick's run of 9 straight poles on Wednesday night. And we still don't know what that 22 really has, because supposedly, I don't think he showed his full hand Thursday night in the dual race, especially with the potential of going to a backup car and losing the starting position on Sunday. So only time will tell. But Joey Logano knows how to win the Daytona 500. And he seems pretty hungry and sounds very determined for his boys to get the 500 again for Roger Penske. It will be it will be Roger's 4th win in the Great American Race if one of those two can pull it off. Speaking of 4th, one guy chasing his 4th Daytona 500 on Sunday, Denny Hamlin. You got to consider him a favorite. He was looking racy last night, and since he's in one of those new Camrys, you can't count him out. Especially after winning the Clash 2 weeks ago. Denny's got big old Mo on his shoulder. The redone shoulder, that is. Denny looking really good. While the speed wasn't there Wednesday night, the Toyotas came to play, and boy, they were flying Thursday night. Not just the Joe Gibbs Racing Toyotas, but his at 2311 as well. Like I said, Bubba led a lot of that second race. And Denny was right there leading right there up to the final lap in turn 2. So you never count out Denny Hamlin when it comes to Daytona. 3-time winner of the 500. The only thing I would say is he hasn't had the finishes since this next gen car. But if Thursday was any indication, if he's still running in the closing stages, just like Joey and Blaney, look for him to be there. Same for Kyle Busch. 19th try at the Great American Race for Kyle. Is this finally the year? Well, he will have to do it just like last year. He will have to go to a backup car again. Last year, same situation. Wrecked in the duel, had to go to a backup, but with Austin Dillon, found their way to the front and was there at the end of regulation. However, things did not fly his way in overtime. Could the tide change this time around? I got a quiet favorite for you, though, and a favorite to many. He quietly worked his way to second last night, Chase Elliott. His father's won this race twice, so I'm pretty sure his father's been in his ear about how to win this race, even though you could argue as much drivers could, there isn't too much you can do. But with all things said and considered, if Chase has been that good, very quiet, and oh, by the way, he was right there in the mix in qualifying Thursday night. He was in that top 10 run for the pole. Ended pole qualifying 6th, but finishing second in the duel, and he was up there all night. If I remember correctly, he didn't leave the top 10 at all. Keep an eye on that number 9. So many people have given Alan Gustafson grief over the offseason for Chase's performance, and Chase has stuck his hand up and said, hey, I got to be a better driver. Is Chase and Alan finally going to get that Daytona 500 monkey off their back? Is Chase's 10th ninth Daytona 500. Is this the year engine number 9 digs his way to victory lane in the Great American Race? Will the numbers align? We'll see. How about Kyle Larson? Larson's in his 11th 500, his 4th for Rick Hendrick. And if he can keep it together, Larson led a lot of laps in Duel 1 Thursday night, and I believe he led on the white flag, if memory served me right. But Larson has a lot of power, a lot of speed, and boy, he could really get in there. Not known for his super speedway prowess. He's wrecked more times on super speedways than he would love to have mentioned. But the guy is quick, the guy is fast, and wouldn't it be something in the year he is going to do the Hendrick 1100, the double on Memorial Day weekend, 1100 miles. 11th 500. Again, numerology. I bring it up to you. Last but not least, in my favorites bucket, let's talk about the team that was in victory lane last time we were at Daytona. Chris Buescher, Brad Keselowski. Chris Buescher wielded that Mustang to victory lane in August, and Buescher is about as good as anyone on super speedways. Buescher knows how to wield that Mustang. He won a dual race here 2 years ago. He knows how to win at Daytona. Does everything fall right for the man from Prosper, Texas to finally win the Daytona 500? Same can be said for his boss, 15th try for Bad Brad. Could this finally be his year to win the Daytona 500? More importantly, it's been 98 races. Heard that number all week since he's last won a race. It came at the sister track to Daytona, Talladega. It was in spring of 2021. But even then, if he doesn't win Sunday, it's only a matter of time because Brad has made so many leaps and bounds with this team to make them contenders again. And if Chris Buescher's 4 wins over the last 2 seasons is any indication, it's only a matter of time. With Brad knocking on the door so often, so repeatedly last season, RFK is going to see a lot of trips to victory lane. Brad and Chris both. But as any of the 40 drivers that will be running Sunday's race will tell you, the cars have to fall right and the luck has to be on your side for them to open the gates for you to victory lane on Sunday. So with that being said, that's kind of my breakdown of favorite dark horses and underdogs for Sunday's Daytona 500. Last but not least, let's give you a little bit of a rundown of what's coming up this weekend. I'll start in the sim racing realm. The Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. I know you haven't heard of that before. Stay tuned. I will give you a little bit of a background rundown next week. But they have the 3rd race of their season. Porsche, big backers of this virtual championship. So big, Tag Heuer timepieces, series sponsor, putting $200,000, them, iRacing, and Porsche into the prize pool. The champion of the series, a cool $50,000 at season's end. Race 3, they will race on iRacing's laser scanned version of Circuit de la Sarthe. Yes, the full 24-hour version, not the Bugatti circuit. That will take place on Saturday the 17th. You can stream it on YouTube, Twitch. It is available on social media channels. You can watch it on Porsche's channel or on iRacing's channel. But definitely make sure you give those guys a look. It's some very, very fun racing. And again, don't sell sim racing short. Also, to the real world sports car racing, very big enduro this weekend. The Repco 12 Hours of Bathurst takes place, the first race of the Intercontinental GT Challenge. Another one of those races under the umbrella of the SRO, Stefan Rattel organization. You heard me mention that a little bit earlier in the video. They have 25 entries split across pro amateur lineups. Some GT4 machines, but also some invitational vehicles, which includes some GT2 spec cars. I know the GT ladder is one crazy wheel ride. I'm gonna have to break that down in a future show. Stay tuned for that one. But 25 entries. Even an entry from America, Heart of Racing, is over there with their Aston Martin. Best of luck to those guys. But a lot of international flavor, including a number of entries from the homegrown Australian ranks. So plenty to watch there. If you are in the US, you can watch the race live. It is streaming on YouTube on the Bathurst 12-hour. The race has its own YouTube channels. GT World channel. You can see that as well. Note the start time, Saturday, February 17th, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. The race does take place Sunday morning in Australia. They'll start the race at dusk, 5 a.m. So there is a lot of time changing, but you will be able to see a good portion of that. And a pretty comfortable time for us Americans. Again, stream the race on YouTube Saturday the 17th, 1 p.m. Eastern. If the weather turns out how we expect it to at Daytona, you might have some pretty good secondary options in the streaming verse, free, by the way, that you will be able to attend to. And of course, Daytona is the center of the racing world. Outside of those, tonight, NASCAR, tonight, we got a version of Midnight Madness at Daytona. Allow me to explain. If you have not heard, NASCAR announced that the ARCA Menard Series will run tonight as a precautionary measure with the inclement weather forecasted for Saturday and the expected start time for the ARCA Menard race, which was scheduled for 1 p.m. They have moved the Hard Rock Bet 200 for the ARCA Menard Series, their season opener. They moved that up to tonight, approximately 10:30 Eastern. If you're watching on TV, you'll see it on FS2. That will be after the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series Fresh from Florida 250. That race kicks off at 7:30 tonight. Fox Sports 1 will have you. Both of these races can be heard on Sirius XM Radio. Please check the app for channels. Saturday, as of right now, no change on the United Rentals 300 for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. That race is set for 5 p.m. on Saturday. Again, that is weather pending. Weather not looking all that great for Saturday. So we will see how this will go. FS1, again, FS1, Motor Racing Network with the radio, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio will have the simulcast of the MRN broadcast. Again, 5 p.m. the scheduled start time as of now, still scheduled to go ahead. And of course, Sunday, the 66th running of the Daytona 500, 2:30 Eastern, Fox. Sirius XM will have the Motor Racing Network radio simulcast. And again, cross our fingers, we'll get it in. They say there is a chance the weather will clear Sunday, late Sunday afternoon. So if things go, we may get another Sunday night Daytona 500. Again, we will have to see how the weather will treat us. So with that being said, that is our super inspection edition of the Scrutineering Room. Had a lot to cover in this episode. I was thinking about breaking it down, and honestly, I may do a little bit of a smaller breakdown of this episode into some smaller pieces. But again, we had a lot to cover in this episode. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I know this is a lot longer than my usual stuff, but if you are watching, leave a comment, give me a like, share. If you like my stuff, subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned. Again, I got some big announcements coming. I'm not just saying it to say it, just trying to put some wheels in motion. That's why I'm not putting dates out there yet. And also, my playlist, The Scrutineering Room, has each and every episode. Also, shameless plug, I have my Rolex 24 in 24 blog. Got some really great pieces in there. Interview with Lee Diffie, Bozy Tadarevich, Vassar Sullivan, some grid shots, interesting right up in the action pieces that I did during my weekend in Daytona for the Rolex 24. Feel free to check those pieces out, give it a like, and share them. But with that being said, enjoy Daytona 500 weekend. Let's cross our fingers and hope we pray we get it in all on schedule, because we know Mother Nature, I don't know what this is with NASCAR. Let's just hope we don't see as much of it in 2024 as we did in 2023. Thank you all so much for coming inside the Scrutineering Room with me. I'm David. I will see you next time, and until we meet again, keep a smile on your face, folks. You look much better when you have one. So long.